Bad luck, that's what you are." Those were the first words my mother-in-law ever spoke to me, and she made sure to say them with a dismissive sneer. Her name was Catherine, and she had the kind of eyes that could freeze a warm room in seconds. I met her a year after I started dating Adrian, my now husband, who tried to reassure me that she was just protective. Protective, my foot. The day I showed up with a bouquet of lilies, a friendly smile, and the best intentions, Catherine stepped out of her foyer like I was a door-to-door salesman trying to scam her. "You again," she said, though I was pretty sure it was our first real meeting. Adrian squeezed my hand, gave me a faint, apologetic look. She refused to give me eye contact after that. At dinner, she criticized every choice I made. "Why would you choose that major? Or you're probably not used to refined food, are you?" By dessert, she decided my presence was unsettling. She didn't hide it either, eyeing me like a threat to her beloved son. That night, she whispered in Adrian's ear while I was in the next room, "This girl will ruin your life. She's bad luck." What she didn't know was that I'd never been one to back down from a challenge. In the weeks that followed, Adrian tried to smooth things over. He explained Catherine's history. A single mother raising him after his father passed away unexpectedly. She'd built an entire identity around being the vigilant parent who protected her son from every wrong influence. Evidently, I was the biggest wrong influence she'd ever encountered. I wanted so badly to impress her. Everybody told me that was wasted effort, but I still tried. I invited her to brunch, took the initiative to visit her with small gifts, even offered to help around her home. She responded with forced politeness, never truly letting me in. I remember cleaning her kitchen cabinets and overhearing her phone call in the living room. "Yes, she's here again, probably trying to earn points. She'll leave soon enough." Adrian would shrug helplessly, telling me, "She's difficult, but she's my mother. I just hope one day she'll see how incredible you are." His loyalty to her was unwavering, and so was my patience, at least at first. However, there was a deeper tension building behind the scenes, something neither Adrian nor I yet understood. Catherine's reasons went beyond maternal protectiveness. She was guarding something far more personal. When Adrian proposed, I was overjoyed. I said yes without hesitation. He was my best friend, the kind of man who saw the world with kindness and hope. I remember the way he slid that ring onto my finger, the way I nearly cried as he said, "We'll make our own happiness." For a while, it felt like we'd outrun his mother's disapproval. But a few nights after our engagement, Catherine asked me to meet her at a cafe downtown, supposedly to talk wedding plans. Naively, I believed her. She was calm, all smiles, even asked if I liked the ring. I started to relax. Maybe she'd had a change of heart. Then, halfway through my latte, she leaned in, voice soft but laced with threat. "I'll pay you if you leave him," she said, without blinking. "Name your number." I nearly choked on my drink. "Excuse me?" "You're not good for Adrian," she continued, as if we were discussing the weather. "You're not good for our family. You'll only bring him disappointment and hardship." She reached into her designer purse, pulling out a pen and a checkbook. My mind spun. Was she serious? Catherine gazed at me, fully expecting me to fold. In that moment, my heart pounded in rage, but I kept calm. "You can't buy me off," I replied. "I'm here because I love your son." A cold gleam passed over her eyes. "We'll see about that." I told Adrian about her buyout offer that same evening. He turned pale with shame, apologizing profusely. "I'll talk to her," he promised. "This can't continue." The next day, he confronted Catherine. She backpedaled in front of him. "It's a misunderstanding. I was just concerned for her future. You know how sometimes I say things I don't mean." Adrian tried to remain neutral, but a rift had formed. He began hesitating before answering her phone calls. Dinners with her became stilted. Catherine noticed, of course, and her resentment deepened. But something else was happening, too. Small sabotages that, at first, I overlooked. A rumor spread at my workplace that I was quitting soon to be a stay-at-home trophy wife. It echoed Catherine's mocking attitude. Then, the boutique where I'd placed wedding favors lost my entire order, claiming that someone posing as me had canceled it the previous day. My bridal shop emailed me to confirm I wanted to downgrade my dress to a cheaper option. None of these coincidences pointed directly to Catherine, but I saw her fingerprints all over them. Even Adrian began to question if maybe I was simply unlucky. "Things keep going wrong," he said once. "Mom has always insisted you'd bring me trouble." Those seeds of doubt were precisely what Catherine wanted to plant. Our wedding day arrived amid these simmering tensions. I tried to focus on the joy. I adored Adrian, and he adored me. We decided on a small ceremony at a lush garden venue, but Catherine insisted on inviting distant relatives. She also demanded to oversee certain details for tradition. On the morning of the ceremony, the florist was late. The officiant called to say a woman had left them a frantic message about cancellation. Then the hairstylist texted me, saying the time slot was mysteriously changed, so they assumed I was done already. By noon, I was a wreck. Nearly everything was going awry. Friends and family scrambled to fix the chaos. Adrian was furious, but Catherine's face showed only feigned shock each time I confronted her. "I don't know what happened, dear. Must be that unfortunate streak you carry," she murmured, her eyes dancing with cold amusement. Miraculously, the ceremony still took place. I walked down the aisle with my father, and there was Adrian at the other end, looking determined to marry me no matter what. Through tears and shaky laughter, we exchanged vows. For that moment, Catherine's sabotage lost its power. We said, "I do." The music soared, but in the back row, Catherine stood stiffly, refusing to clap, sending one final warning: "This isn't over. Newlywed bliss?" It lasted barely a week. Adrian and I came back from our short honeymoon, hoping to settle into life as husband and wife. Then we found Catherine sitting on our porch, arms folded, ready to unleash a hurricane of guilt. "I heard you had a lovely trip," she said, eyes narrowing. "Must be nice to gallivant around while your father's estate is in disarray." The line caught me off guard. My father had passed away years ago, and his modest estate was long settled. "What are you talking about?" I asked, confused. Catherine waved a handful of documents. "I've found new information that suggests your father left debts behind. Adrian should be aware of what he's married into." Adrian looked rattled. I could see him mentally bracing for another storm of negativity. I, however, was done feeling powerless. I asked to see the paperwork. Catherine refused. "I'm simply alerting Adrian. If you want to see it, you can ask him after I show him." She was trying to sow doubt in his mind. Maybe I'd inherited secret debts, making me bad luck indeed. But my father's finances were never that complicated. I bit my tongue as she dramatically marched past me into our living room, wearing her triumph like a crown. This time, I decided, I wouldn't just defend. I'd counterattack. I began digging. My father's estate was straightforward. A small pension, our family home sold years ago, and some insurance money. There was no sign of outstanding debt. I rummaged through old files, combed through bank statements. Nothing. Either Catherine had fabricated the documents, or someone else was feeding her false info. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator, Carla, someone I'd once helped pro bono. I had a legal background, though I rarely practiced. Carla specialized in uncovering shady dealings. She found the supposed debt documents Catherine flaunted. They were questionable property liens on an abandoned piece of land. Curiously, those liens had been filed a month ago, long after my father's death. "That land never belonged to your father," Carla confirmed. "It used to be in Catherine's maiden name." It took me a moment to connect the dots. Catherine had orchestrated a fake debtor scenario. Perhaps her plan was to scare Adrian into thinking I owed thousands, so he'd see me as a financial risk. She was so fixated on labeling me bad luck that she'd commit borderline fraud to prove it. I felt a surge of resolve. Enough with playing defense. It was time to turn the tables for good. The question was, how could I do it without tearing Adrian apart in the process? Catherine's illusions were starting to work. Adrian had always loved me deeply, but he was rattled. Every day he'd ask more cautious questions. "Are you sure everything's settled with your father's estate? What if we do owe something? Mom is certain there's a lien." His trust in me was overshadowed by the mother he couldn't bear to contradict. We argued late into the night, him pleading, "I'm not taking her side, I just need answers." I would brandish the evidence I'd collected, demanding, "Why can't you see she's forging this?" He'd run a hand through his hair, exasperated. But why would she do that? It was excruciating to watch him torn between the two women he loved. Catherine knew exactly how to manipulate him, dropping hints that I'm only protecting you, or I can't bear to see you hurt. She'd corner him outside our house, guilt him over being disrespectful if he questioned her tactics. One evening, I found him sitting alone in the dark, haunted by the idea that maybe I was lying to him. That was the moment I decided I had to cut to the root of the problem. We couldn't move forward as a couple if Catherine's sabotage persisted. So I began to plan a confrontation that would strip away every ounce of her manipulative facade and force her into a deal she wouldn't see coming. To take down Catherine's manipulations, I needed leverage, her weak spot. I asked Carla to investigate Catherine's background, old business ventures, family rifts, anything that might unravel the illusions she was spinning. Carla discovered something intriguing. Catherine had a messy lawsuit when Adrian was a child. She'd tried to claim an inheritance from her estranged parents in Europe, but it fell through. There were also rumors of an affair that ended painfully. Nothing directly useful, but we kept digging. Then Carla hit a goldmine. Catherine's self-proclaimed net worth was inflated. She was living large on credit, forging documents to appear wealthier to her social circle. She hobnobbed with high society types, but multiple banks had flagged her accounts for irregularities. That's likely why she was so obsessed with Adrian's fortunes. She feared that if he married someone outside her control, she'd lose her last financial lifeline. Armed with that, I realized Catherine's motivations were more about preserving her own lifestyle than about protecting Adrian. She needed to keep him close, so she used scare tactics to drive me away. If I wanted her to back off, I'd have to expose this secret. But how to do it without making Adrian the collateral damage? I decided to invite Catherine to dinner at our home, her favorite son making a home-cooked meal, with me playing the gracious wife. She arrived in a swirl of perfume and judgment. Adrian had no idea I was orchestrating something bigger behind the scenes. He just thought I was trying to mend bridges. Catherine perched at our dining table with that familiar look of superiority. She complimented the decor in a backhanded way. "I see you're attempting an upscale style, dear," as though my taste was second-rate. After dinner, we served tea. Catherine smiled graciously at Adrian, who was relieved we hadn't argued yet. I pretended to excuse myself to fetch dessert, but I returned with a file folder instead. "Catherine," I said calmly, setting the folder on the table, "I've come across some interesting documents. They're about your finances." Adrian's head whipped around, confusion flaring in his eyes. Catherine's face froze. "Why are you looking into my finances?" she demanded. "Because you've been meddling in mine," I replied, voice steady. I tapped the folder. "I know about your mounting debts, the credit lines, the inflated assets, and I know the real reason you called me bad luck. You're afraid you'll lose Adrian's financial security." The air crackled with tension. Catherine's eyes burned with fury. Adrian stared, torn between shock and heartbreak. The stage was set. Catherine tried to deny it, of course. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she hissed, grabbing the folder. But even a quick glance at the neatly compiled statements must have told her she'd been found out. Adrian was too stunned to speak, eyes darting between us. I pressed on, unwavering. "You wanted to label me bad luck so you could manipulate Adrian into thinking I'd be a burden and then push me away. You even forged fake debt claims in my father's name." She shot to her feet. "How dare you?" "Sit down," I said, my voice steady as steel. Surprisingly, she did, though her expression seethed. Adrian finally found his voice. "Mom, is this true?" he asked, hands trembling. She refused to meet his eyes. "I did it for you," she said softly, an echo of the guilt trips she'd used for years. But the evidence was damning. The moment hung in a terrifying balance. Adrian looked devastated, as if the ground had been yanked from under him. I steeled myself for the next part. "Catherine, I'm prepared to expose everything, but I'm giving you a choice, an offer you can't refuse." Her gaze snapped to me, her lips parted in disbelief. She realized the power had shifted entirely into my hands. With Catherine simmering in her seat, I laid out my proposal. 1. Complete non-interference. Catherine would cease all meddling in our marriage, no more sabotage, rumors, or manipulations. She'd also publicly retract her fabricated claims about my unlucky finances, letting everyone know the truth. 2. Financial oversight. She would let me arrange her finances under a legal trust, ensuring her lavish spending didn't spiral further. In return, I wouldn't reveal her fraudulent activity to law enforcement or lenders. 3. Positive coexistence. She'd remain part of Adrian's life, but only under conditions of respect. If she broke those rules, I'd open the folder to the authorities and she'd face the consequences of her false documents. Catherine stared, outraged that I would dare dictate terms. Adrian was still in shock, but I saw a flicker of relief in his eyes, like he sensed a possible path forward that didn't involve complete family ruin. "You can't do this," Catherine spat, but we both knew I absolutely could. I pinned her with a calm gaze, letting her feel the weight of her own vulnerability. "Either we settle this quietly," I said, "or the world discovers the truth about you." Her answer would define all of our futures. Catherine didn't break easily. She tried to turn Adrian against me once more, using tears this time. "Don't let her do this, Adrian. She's threatening me. I only wanted to protect you." She clutched his hand, playing the victim. He pulled away gently. "Mom," he said, voice tight, "I don't know what's worse, that you did all this or that you keep lying." His heartbreak was obvious. This woman had practically been his hero all his life, and now she was exposed as a manipulator. I watched Catherine's eyes well up, not with remorse but with fear. Adrian's unwavering stance told her she'd lost his blind loyalty. She realized that the only remaining leverage was to cooperate if she wanted to keep any relationship with him at all. At last, Catherine let out a trembling sigh. "Fine," she managed. "I'll accept your conditions." She despised every word, but she had no choice. She was cornered, trapped by her own schemes. I nodded, and though my heart raced, I felt a certain calm. We were forging a fragile peace, one that only existed because I held the bigger weapon. As Catherine slumped in her chair, Adrian wordlessly walked out of the room, needing air. We were poised on the edge of a new chapter, one with new boundaries and new truths. The immediate aftermath was delicate. Adrian slept in fits, his mind reeling with the betrayal. Catherine retreated to her own home, no longer welcome to drop in unannounced. We planned to finalize the trust arrangement under my attorney's guidance, ensuring Catherine had living expenses but zero room for fraudulent behavior. Meanwhile, my name needed clearing. For months, rumors had circulated that I was financially unstable or unlucky. Catherine was instructed to call those vendors, my boutique, the wedding planner, the florist, and confess she'd orchestrated the cancellations and disruptions. She also wrote a short statement, retracting the phony liens. My father's name was cleared, and I felt an almost physical weight lift from my shoulders. Still, I could sense that not everyone believed her. Some had grown fond of her narrative that I was a curse. But as the weeks passed, the facts spoke louder. I quietly circulated the corrected information to anyone who'd been involved. My workplace, certain relatives. Bit by bit, the stigma dissolved, replaced by whispered gossip about Catherine's meltdown. Through it all, Adrian stood by me. We began to rebuild our trust, though he sometimes looked haunted, as if reevaluating his entire childhood. "I just never saw her like this," he'd say, voice trembling. I could only hold him and reassure him we'd be better for confronting it. Life didn't magically return to normal. My relationship with Catherine was far from cordial, and Adrian struggled to find a way to love both his mother and me without conflict. Some nights, I'd hear him on the phone with her, listening as she insisted she'd only done what any mother would do. But a part of him couldn't swallow that excuse anymore. Meanwhile, I discovered deeper wounds in Catherine's past. A few old documents hinted at how she'd survived a string of financial woes after Adrian's father died. I wondered if that's when she decided survival meant controlling everything and everyone around her. Despite everything, I felt a stab of empathy. She was trapped by her own fear of being powerless, so she'd lash out at anyone who threatened her sense of control. That didn't excuse her actions, of course, but it explained them. I approached Adrian gently about therapy, maybe for him, maybe for her. He hesitated, not certain if Catherine would ever set foot in a counselor's office. "But you?" he asked quietly. "Could you come with me?" We decided we needed couples therapy. Not because our love was weak, but because it had been battered by a vicious onslaught of manipulation. I saw it as an investment in our future, one that Catherine's negativity could no longer sabotage if we learned to stand together firmly. I fully expected Catherine to lash out again. She'd reluctantly signed our legal agreement, letting me control her finances under the trust. Yet she was an expert at subtle warfare. It started with petty moves. She'd attempt to contact Adrian's close friends, painting me as a gold digger. She told distant relatives I had forced her into poverty. However, the trust arrangement clearly allocated her a comfortable monthly allowance, just not enough for extravagant luxuries and secret credit lines. She realized that when she tried to book a week-long spa retreat, only to be declined. "What do you think you're doing?" she shrilled over the phone. "I'm not some child with an allowance." "You agreed to let me set boundaries," I said, calm as I could. "And you'll have more than enough for daily life." She hung up on me, furious. Adrian overheard the tail end of that call. "If she keeps attacking you, we might have to escalate," he said quietly, eyes resolute. "I'm done letting her mistreat you." Hearing that shift in him, he was finally prepared to draw lines with his mother, made me realize the offer I'd given Catherine was also giving Adrian space to grow out of her shadow. Whether she accepted that or not was her choice. Amid the tension, I got an unexpected message. A distant cousin of Adrian's named Miranda reached out. She'd heard Catherine's version of events, but she didn't buy it. Miranda asked to meet for coffee. I agreed, figuring she might just want gossip. Instead, Miranda revealed that Catherine had pulled similar stunts in the past, driving away a girlfriend Adrian had in college, sabotaging a potential fiancé before me. "She's done this 3 times, Miranda whispered, stirring her latte. I was the only relative who saw the pattern. She hates losing control of him. I stared, stunned. He never told me he'd been engaged before. Miranda gave a sad smile. He wasn't. The woman was about to propose a business partnership, and Catherine manipulated Adrian into thinking the woman was only after money. He broke it off. It chilled me to realize Catherine's game was years old, perfected over time. But Miranda also offered help. "If you need me to back you up, I will. I'm so tired of Aunt Catherine's drama." I thanked her, genuinely touched. It felt good to know not everyone in Adrian's extended family believed Catherine's lies. Quietly, I vowed that this cycle would end with me. I refused to let Catherine keep overshadowing Adrian's life. Our couple's therapy sessions became a safe space for Adrian and me. He finally got to talk about the subtle control Catherine had exercised over him his whole life, how her grief over losing his father morphed into overprotectiveness, how her paranoia about being financially insecure shaped everything, and how she manipulated others to secure her sense of power. I, for my part, realized just how deeply I'd been hurt by her labeling me bad luck. Over time, I'd internalized the stress, feeling I had to prove my worth constantly. The therapist taught me to separate my own self-esteem from Catherine's opinions. Meanwhile, Catherine tried to maintain her social status, but the allowance we set was realistic, not lavish. She started missing the fancy luncheons and weekend getaways she was used to flaunting. Friends drifted away, suspicious of her lies. It seemed she was paying the price for all the illusions she'd constructed. One evening, she sent a text. "If you want me out of your life, just say so." Adrian read it first, looking torn. "She's fishing for pity," he said softly, "but part of me wonders if she's genuinely lonely." I took a breath. "She needs real help, Adrian, but if she's unwilling to change, we can't keep saving her from herself." One chilly afternoon, Catherine did something we never expected. She invited both of us to her home for dinner. No trick, no sabotage, just, "Come, I'd like to talk." Adrian was skeptical but hopeful. I was cautious. Her track record of luring us into ambushes was well known. Still, we decided to try, especially after therapy taught us to at least give a chance to honest communication. We arrived to find a modest meal prepared. Catherine's face was drawn but calm. The table was set with a simple salad, roast chicken, and homemade bread. It felt dissonant, seeing this domestic scene after months of strife. As we ate, she admitted, "I know I pushed you away." Her voice trembled. "I suppose I believed if you married an outsider, Adrian, I'd lose you completely." Adrian reached for her hand gently. "Mom, I was never leaving you," he said. "I just wanted a family of my own, with someone I love." She swallowed hard. "It doesn't excuse what I did, I realize that." Then she glanced at me, a hint of genuine regret behind her eyes. "I'm sorry for calling you bad luck. It was cruel." For the first time I sensed sincerity. We were standing at a crossroad, Was this Catherine's step toward real repentance, or a calculated move to regain favor? Despite Catherine's apology, I didn't let my guard down instantly. I remembered her flair for manipulation. But Adrian looked hopeful, and part of me yearned for the possibility of a healthy relationship. Over dinner, Catherine explained her biggest fear. I grew up with nothing. I lost my husband suddenly, and I was terrified that I'd lose my son too, emotionally, financially, in every way. So I tried to control every aspect of his life. She didn't elaborate on the malicious details, like forging documents to frame me, but acknowledging her fear was a start. "I'm not asking you to forgive me right away," she said to us both, though she couldn't fully meet my eyes. I don't want to be alone." Adrian looked emotionally stirred. I squeezed his hand under the table, letting him sense my caution. After all, we still had a legal arrangement. She couldn't revert to her old ways without severe consequences. By the time dessert was served, a humble apple pie, the tension had eased slightly. We left with a complex swirl of emotions, a glimmer of hope, overshadowed by rightful mistrust. It felt like a step forward, but we needed more than words to trust Catherine again. In the following weeks, Catherine's behavior seemed to shift. She cooperated with the trust's terms, gave me no fight over her monthly allowance, and even asked for budgeting advice. That alone astounded me. This was the woman who once insisted she was financially superior. Adrian was relieved, sure his mother was turning over a new leaf. I, however, tested her sincerity. I let her handle a small portion of leftover wedding tasks, like picking up our final album prints. Previously, she'd sabotage such tasks. This time, she did them smoothly, no drama. She even returned the prints with a polite note. "They look lovely. Thank you for trusting me." Gradually, we allowed her more involvement in family gatherings. She showed up with less hostility, tried to make pleasant conversation, and rarely brought up the old curses or rumors. Sometimes I saw her falter, like she'd remember how deeply she'd hated me, but she'd catch herself. Adrian's shoulders relaxed, the tension lines on his face eased. For the first time since our wedding, we felt the warmth of hope. But in the back of my mind, I remained watchful. I knew that if Catherine discovered a chance to break free from the trust arrangement, she might revert to sabotage. Only time would tell whether her motherly love could truly overcome her drive for control. Late one evening, I heard Adrian talking quietly on the phone. He'd stepped outside onto the patio, unaware I could hear him through the screen door. "It's better now," he said, relief in his voice. "I actually think we might be a family." Part of me melted at how much he'd yearned for that. Another part was still braced for the worst. After he ended the call, he slid the door open and found me leaning against the kitchen counter. He chuckled, sheepishly. "I guess you heard." I walked up to him, resting my head on his shoulder. "I'm glad you feel hopeful," I whispered. "I do too, in my own cautious way." We lingered there in a calm hush, reflecting on the long road we'd traveled. I remembered that horrible wedding day sabotage, the forged documents, her attempts to buy me off. Adrian remembered a mother who had once been his protector, but turned manipulative out of fear. Both of us were tired of the conflict, tired of living in suspicion, longing to build a stable life. That night, we clung to each other in bed, watching shadows dance on the ceiling, each silently praying that Catherine's transformation was real and that we'd finally leave bad luck behind. Just when we thought stability was around the corner, an incident brought old ghosts roaring back. Catherine asked us to attend a community gala, a fancy affair with her circle of friends. She said she wanted to introduce us properly, to show she'd accepted me. The evening started well, with Catherine graciously introducing me around. People who'd once heard nasty rumors looked surprised to see us chatting amicably. Adrian smiled, relief in his eyes. Then I overheard a snippet of conversation behind me, Catherine bragging to a friend. "Yes, my monthly allowance is quite comfortable. I negotiated well with them. You know me, I always get what I want." A swirl of old suspicion rose in my chest. But I steadied myself. Maybe she was just trying to save face, painting the trust arrangement as something she'd skillfully orchestrated. Later, though, I caught her in a corner with a wealthy acquaintance, slipping back into insinuations. "My son's wife is sweet but naive. Hopefully she won't cause more trouble like before." Her words, half laughing, half condescending, stung. I confronted her gently afterwards. Are you still telling people I'm the problem? Her eyes flashed, and for a moment I saw the old manipulator. But she quickly masked it, forcing a smile. I'm just joking, dear. Don't be so sensitive. I felt a cold pang of realization. Maybe Catherine's so-called progress was just a new camouflage. The next day, I told Adrian about the gala conversation. He was furious, not at me, but at Catherine for reverting to her old ways. I'll talk to her, he vowed. However, when he did, Catherine turned on the tears. Your wife is taking everything out of context. She insisted she'd only been making small talk, that I was oversensitive. It felt like a replay of her greatest hits, except now Adrian saw through them. Stop it, he snapped, something he'd never done before. Stop blaming her. Catherine gasped, genuinely startled by his firmness. He told her flatly that if she continued undermining me in public, we would cut all contact again. No dinners, no calls, no visits. She started to protest, but he held up his hand. I love you, Mom, but I refuse to let you sabotage our marriage. This is your final warning. A stunned silence followed. Finally, Catherine nodded numbly, sensing that the ultimatum was real. After he left, I stood in the doorway, meeting her gaze. Don't take me lightly, I said softly. We gave you an offer and a chance to redeem yourself. Don't throw it away just to prove some twisted point. She said nothing, but she looked at me differently, like she realized I wasn't backing down. Months passed. Catherine, though still prideful, began making steady efforts to respect boundaries. She maintained her monthly allowance without complaint, and never again threatened us with sabotage. Occasionally, I'd catch her rolling her eyes at my decisions, but she'd bite her tongue rather than start a fight. In social settings, she spoke of me as Adrian's beloved partner, even if her tone was a bit forced. Adrian and I grew stronger too. The scars from her earlier manipulations didn't vanish, but therapy helped us maintain unity. When Catherine tested a boundary, we enforced it calmly, reminding her of our arrangement. Over time, her resentment dulled. She discovered that if she treated us kindly, we returned kindness in spades. One sunny afternoon, we invited her for brunch at our place. No tension, no hidden agenda. She arrived with an actual smile, though uncertain. We chatted about Adrian's new job promotion, my volunteer work, even reminisced about funny childhood stories. I realized she was trying, in her own guarded way, to be part of our lives without overshadowing them. We'll never be the perfect mother-in-law and daughter-in-law duo, but we found a fragile peace built on firm boundaries. The woman who once called me bad luck learned, through consequences and a leveraged offer, that I would not be dismissed or controlled. And I learned that sometimes the best way to handle a toxic force is to beat them at their own game. Then offer them a path to redemption, if they want it. That's how we finally moved on, making an offer Catherine couldn't refuse, and carving out the family life Adrian and I always deserved.